The courtroom was cold and quiet when the doors opened. A police officer walked in, holding the arm of a tired, thin man. His clothes were dirty. His shoes had holes. His hair was messy. His face looked older than his real age. People turned their heads to look at him. Some of them started laughing quietly. A few whispered to each other. "Look at him," one woman said. "Probably stole something again." "He smells bad," a man said, covering his nose. The man they were talking about was Marcus, a homeless black man who had been living on the streets for years. He had not eaten for 2 days. His hands were shaking. He looked around, not afraid, but tired, like he had seen too much in life. Marcus sat down at the defendant's table. A young public defender named Mr. Allen sat beside him. He didn't even look at Marcus. The judge entered. Everyone stood up. The judge was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. His name was Judge Thompson. "Be seated," the judge said. As Judge Thompson sat down, his eyes stopped on Marcus. For a moment, he just stared at him. His face changed a little, but no one noticed. The courtroom was busy. A few people still giggled as they looked at Marcus. A guard rolled his eyes. "This is case 14B, the clerk said. "Marcus Williams, charged with theft. He is accused of stealing bread from Jefferson's grocery." The store owner, Mr. Jefferson, stood near the witness stand. He was a rich man in a suit. "That's him," Mr. Jefferson said. "He walked into my store, took a loaf of bread, and tried to leave without paying. I had to call the police." Marcus tried to speak. "I asked first. I told you I was hungry." "Quiet!" the guard shouted. The courtroom laughed again. Mr. Allen, Marcus's lawyer, didn't say anything to help. He looked bored, as if he didn't want to be there. Judge Thompson hit his gavel. "Order in the court." He looked at Marcus. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, like a memory. But Marcus didn't notice. He looked down at his hands. The judge turned to the public defender. "Mr. Allen, do you have anything to say in defense of your client?" Mr. Allen cleared his throat. "Your Honor, it was just a loaf of bread. My client is homeless and—" "That's not a defense," Mr. Jefferson shouted. "If I let one thief go, I'll have 10 more the next day." The crowd murmured in agreement. Marcus spoke again, softly but clearly. "I didn't steal. I just asked for food. I was hungry. I told him I had no money." Judge Thompson looked at Marcus again. This time, his face looked serious. "How long have you been homeless, Mr. Williams?" he asked. "Almost 7 years," Marcus replied. "And before that, I was a music teacher. My wife died in a car accident. I couldn't handle it. I lost my job, my house, everything." The courtroom went quiet for a moment. Then someone in the back whispered, "Probably lying." Judge Thompson stared at the crowd. "Enough." He looked down at Marcus. "Mr. Williams, do you remember me?" Marcus looked confused. "No, sir." The judge nodded slowly. He seemed deep in thought. Then he stood up. "I need a short recess," the judge said. 10 minutes! He banged his gavel and walked out of the courtroom. People looked around, confused. Judges didn't usually leave in the middle of a small case like this. Marcus sat quietly, still in handcuffs. His face was calm. But something had changed. For the first time, someone had looked at him without hate. The laughter in the courtroom stopped. And for the first time in years, Marcus felt a strange feeling in his chest. Hope. Marcus sat alone at the defendant's table. The courtroom was still and quiet after the judge left. People whispered, wondering why the judge walked out. Maybe he got sick. Someone said. "No, something strange," said another. "Did you see how he looked at that homeless guy?" Marcus didn't hear them. His mind was far away. He was thinking about his past. The days before the streets, before the pain. 7 years ago, Marcus had a life. He was a music teacher at a small school. He had students who loved him. He had a wife, Angela, who was full of laughter and light. They lived in a small house, not rich, but full of love. Then one rainy night, everything changed. Angela was driving home from work. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car. She died on the spot. Marcus was broken. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. Music didn't feel the same anymore. The piano at home went silent. Every room felt empty. After a few months, he lost his job. The school said he needed time to heal, but he never came back. Bills started piling up. The bank took the house. Friends stopped calling. And then he was alone. He started sleeping in parks, under bridges, in shelters when they had space. He learned which churches gave out food. Some nights he had nothing. But he never begged. He always asked politely. Sometimes people helped. Most just looked away. Back in the courtroom, Marcus sat with his head down. He remembered a day when he gave music lessons to a young boy at a youth center. The boy had no father. Marcus had taken extra time to help him. That boy had been quiet, scared, but smart. He wondered where that boy was now. The courtroom doors opened. Judge Thompson returned, looking calm, but serious. He sat in his chair and took a deep breath. Everyone stood, then sat again. Judge Thompson looked at Marcus. "Mr. Williams," he said softly, "you really don't remember me, do you?" Marcus shook his head. "No, sir, I'm sorry." The judge looked down, then back up. "Many years ago, when I was a teenager, I lived in a poor neighborhood. My mother worked 2 jobs. My older brother was in a gang. I was close to going down the same path. People listened closely now. No one moved. One day, my school sent me to a music class after school. I didn't want to go. I was angry at the world. But the teacher there, he was kind. He saw something in me. He said I had strength inside me." The judge pointed at Marcus. "That teacher was you, Mr. Williams." A soft gasp went through the room. Marcus looked shocked. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "You don't remember," the judge said with a small smile. "But I do. You told me I could be more than my street, that I had a choice. You even bought me a cheap suit for my first school speech contest. I became a lawyer because of you." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. "You're the reason I'm here today," the judge said. "And now I see you, broken, laughed at, treated like trash. And I ask myself, what kind of world do we live in where a man like you ends up like this?" The courtroom was silent. Some people looked away in shame. The judge cleared his throat. "We will continue this case, but first, I want a private meeting with Mr. Williams in my chambers." He banged the gavel. "Court is in recess." The guard walked over to Marcus, but this time he didn't pull him roughly. He gently helped him stand. Marcus wiped his tears. As he walked with the guard, he passed the people who had laughed at him before. No one was laughing now. Mr. Allen, the public defender, looked at Marcus differently. He looked embarrassed. As Marcus followed the guard into the judge's private chambers, his heart was heavy. But something else was growing inside him. A small light. Judge Thompson's private chambers were quiet and warm. A bookshelf filled one wall. Photos of his family and law school days stood on a wooden table. A small clock ticked slowly in the background. Marcus stood in the middle of the room. His hands were still in cuffs. He looked down, unsure of what was coming next. The judge walked in and closed the door gently. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he nodded to the guard. "You can take off the handcuffs," the judge said. "But sir," the guard started. "It's fine," the judge said. "I know this man." The guard slowly removed the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists and looked at the judge with confusion and a little fear. "Sit down, Marcus," Judge Thompson said, pointing to a chair. Marcus sat. The judge sat across from him. "Do you believe me now?" the judge asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "I remember now. Your name was Terence. You were always quiet in class, but you listened." "Yes," the judge said with a smile. "And you were the first person who ever believed in me." Marcus looked away. "I'm not that man anymore. Life took everything." Judge Thompson leaned forward. "No, Marcus. Life tried to break you, but it didn't. You didn't steal. You didn't hurt anyone. You still asked for help, not demanded it. That says something." Marcus's eyes filled with tears again. He tried to hide them. The judge stood and walked to a cabinet. He opened it and pulled out a small, dusty folder. He brought it back and placed it on the table between them. "What's that?" Marcus asked. "Something I've kept for years." The judge said, "Look." Marcus opened the folder. Inside was an old photo. It showed a young Terence, now Judge Thompson, standing next to Marcus at a school music event. Marcus had his arm around the boy, smiling proudly. "I never forgot that day," the judge said. "You told me, no matter where life takes him, you remember who you are." Those words stayed with me. Marcus nodded slowly, remembering those days. "But there's something else," the judge said. "Something I've never told anyone." Marcus looked up, curious. "After you helped me, I started working hard. I stayed out of trouble. But my brother, he didn't. He went to prison. One night, after a gang fight, I found him in our kitchen. He was bleeding. He told me he wanted to change. He wanted to go back to school." Judge Thompson paused, his face darkening. "But it was too late. He died that night. In my arms. I always felt guilty. Like maybe if I had done more. Like maybe if I had helped him the way you helped me." "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "That's why I became a judge," Thompson said. "To help people who were lost. People like my brother. People like me. People like you." Marcus sat quietly. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. The judge leaned back. "I don't know what the law will allow. You did take the bread, even if it was for survival. But I know one thing. This courtroom laughed at a man who deserved respect." He stood up again. "And I won't allow that to continue." "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked softly. "I'm going to find a way," the judge said. "But I'll need your help too. Do you want your life back?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked at the photo again, then at his hands. Then he looked up. "Yes," he said. "I do." The judge smiled. "Then let's begin," he said. He reached out his hand. Marcus stood and shook it. It was not just a handshake. It was a promise. At that moment, behind the courtroom doors, something was changing. The people were waiting. The laughter was gone. Whispers had turned to silence. Something big was coming, and no one could guess what it was. The courtroom was quiet. People were still waiting. Some looked at the big clock on the wall. Others whispered to each other. "Why is it taking so long? Is the judge really talking to that homeless man?" Something felt different now. The air was heavy. Even the lawyer, Mr. Allen, was fidgeting in his seat. Then the door opened. Everyone turned. Judge Thompson walked in. Serious, calm, strong. And right behind him was Marcus. He was walking beside the judge. Not like a criminal, but like a man with dignity. His hands were no longer in cuffs. The guard stayed near, but didn't touch Marcus. The judge sat in his chair. "Court is now back in session," he said, voice firm. Everyone sat down quickly. Mr. Allen stood and tried to speak. "Your Honor, may I ask?" The judge raised his hand. "Sit down, Mr. Allen." Mr. Allen froze. He sat. The judge looked at the whole room. Before we continue this case, I want to say something important. People leaned forward. Earlier today, the judge began. This courtroom laughed at a man who is homeless, a man who is hungry, a man who is desperate. He looked straight at the front row. The people who had laughed the loudest. You mocked him. You judged him with your eyes, without knowing his heart. You saw dirt on his clothes and thought he had no worth. A woman in the audience lowered her head. Another man coughed nervously. But you were wrong. The judge continued. Because this man, Marcus Williams, once changed my life. When I was a troubled teenager, he believed in me. He gave me hope. He helped me stand on the right path. The courtroom went still. Today I stand as a judge. But I could have been lost. I could have been forgotten. Marcus Williams was the man who helped save me. A whisper went around the room. People were now looking at Marcus differently. Judge Thompson took a breath. And now it is my turn to help him. The public defender, Mr. Allen, looked surprised. With the power given to me, the judge said, I will not treat Mr. Williams like a criminal. He is not a thief. He is a man who fell into hard times, like so many others. And he deserves help, not punishment. Mr. Allen stood again. But, Your Honor, he still broke the law. Did he? The judge asked. He took a piece of bread to survive. He harmed no one. And even then, he offered to return or repay it. The judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Williams, would you be willing to join a rehabilitation program? One that gives you a place to stay, meals, and helps you rebuild your life. Marcus stood slowly. He looked around the room, at the same people who had laughed at him. Marcus stood outside the courthouse, the sun warm on his face. For a moment, he just stood still, breathing deeply. It felt like waking up from a long, dark dream. He wasn't in handcuffs. He wasn't being laughed at. He was free. A black car pulled up near the steps. A woman stepped out, holding a clipboard and smiling warmly. Mr. Marcus Williams? She asked. Yes, Marcus said carefully. I'm Sandra. I run the New Hope program. Judge Thompson asked us to take care of you. Marcus looked unsure. You mean, you're here to help me? Yes, she said. We give people a second chance. Let's get you cleaned up, fed, and started on a new path. Marcus slowly nodded and followed her to the car. He kept looking back, wondering if this was real. But the courthouse was behind him now. The past was behind him. The car ride was quiet. Marcus looked out the window, watching people walk down the streets. People with homes, jobs, clean clothes. He had once lived like them. Could he do it again? They reached a small building with a garden outside. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and calm. Inside, the smell of fresh food filled the air. This will be your home for the next few months, Sandra said. We have clean rooms, hot meals, counselors, and job training. She showed Marcus to a small room. It had a bed, a desk, a window, and a fresh towel. This is mine? He asked in disbelief. Yes, yours. Sandra smiled. There's hot soup in the dining hall, and tomorrow we'll talk about your plans. Marcus sat on the bed. It felt soft and real. He didn't know how to act. He looked around, then quietly whispered, Thank you. That night, Marcus slept without fear for the first time in years. The next morning, Marcus met with Sandra in a small office. We read in your old records that you were once a music teacher, she said. Marcus nodded. Yes, before everything fell apart. Sandra handed him a flyer. There's a school nearby looking for a part-time music assistant. They know your story. They're willing to meet you. Marcus's eyes went wide. Are you serious? Yes. And don't worry, we'll go with you. You just have to show them who you are. Marcus took the flyer and held it tight. His hands were shaking. Also, Sandra added, we want you to join our evening classes to help you adjust, learn again, build a routine. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll do whatever it takes. That afternoon, he visited the school. The halls were filled with music, drums, piano, children laughing. The principal, Mr. Reed, was kind but direct. We know you've had a hard life, Mr. Williams, but we also know talent when we see it. Play something for us. Marcus sat at the old school piano. His fingers shook at first. Then they started to move. A soft, beautiful melody filled the room. The sound was gentle but full of pain, hope, and emotion. When he stopped, the room was silent. The principal clapped. You've got the job, he said. Marcus smiled for the first time in years. Over the next few weeks, Marcus began to change. He shaved, got new clothes, started helping at the school. Children loved him, his gentle voice, his stories, his music. Every evening, he attended classes at New Hope. He talked to others, men and women who were once homeless, broken, lost. He wasn't alone anymore, and every weekend, Judge Thompson would visit. They would sit outside in the garden and talk like old friends. You're doing well, the judge said one day. It's hard, Marcus replied, but I'm trying. That's all that matters. But deep inside, Marcus still carried fear. He knew life was full of tests. What if something went wrong again? What if people still saw him as that homeless man? He tried to stay strong, but one morning a letter arrived. It was from a reporter. Marcus held the letter in his hands for a long time. It came from a local newspaper. The reporter's name was Emily Carter. She had heard what happened in the courtroom. The laughter, the judge's speech, and the second chance. Her letter said, Dear Mr. Williams, I believe your story can inspire thousands. I would like to meet you and write an article about your journey from the courtroom to the classroom. Only with your permission. Sincerely, Emily Carter, City Voice News. Marcus's hands shook as he read it again. He wasn't sure how to feel. He had just started to rebuild his life. Things were quiet and safe, but now a reporter wanted to tell the world who he was. The man who once slept on the street, begged for food, and was laughed at by strangers. He looked at Sandra, unsure. What if people judge me again? Sandra smiled gently. Or what if they see the real you and find hope? Marcus was silent. A part of him wanted to stay hidden, but another part wanted to speak. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll meet her. 2 days later, Marcus sat in a small cafe. He wore a clean shirt and his beard was neatly trimmed. Emily Carter walked in. She was young, kind-looking, and held a small notebook. Mr. Williams? She asked politely. Yes, he said. Standing up, they shook hands and sat down. I want to thank you for agreeing to talk, she said. I know it's not easy. Marcus nodded. I almost said no. Emily opened her notebook. Can I ask what changed your mind? Marcus looked out the window. Then he turned back to her. I remembered how it felt when Judge Thompson stood up for me. He spoke the truth. Maybe it's time I do the same. Emily listened carefully as Marcus told his story. Growing up, teaching music, the death of his wife, losing his home, and the day he took the bread, followed by the courtroom moment that changed everything. Sometimes his voice shook. Sometimes he paused. But Emily wrote every word, her eyes full of respect. When he finished, she said, Your story. It's powerful. I think people need to hear it. Marcus gave a small smile. I hope it helps someone. 1 week later, the article was published. The headline read, "From Homeless to Hope, the man who changed a judge's life." Marcus's story spread quickly. Thousands read it. People commented online. Some were shocked. Others were inspired. Many shared their own struggles with poverty, loss, and fear. At the New Hope Center, phone calls came in. Can we donate clothes? Do you need volunteers? Is Marcus still teaching music? My daughter wants to learn from him. At the school, more students joined his music class. Some parents even visited, wanting to meet the man from the article. Marcus felt nervous, but also proud. He was no longer invisible. One morning, he stood in front of the school auditorium. The principal had asked him to speak. The room was full. Students, teachers, parents, and even strangers who had read the article. Marcus stepped up to the microphone. His hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from emotion. He looked around and began. I was once laughed at in a courtroom, but I've also been lifted by kindness. I was lost, but not forgotten. He paused. You don't always know what someone is going through. Before you judge a person, look at their heart, not their shoes. The room was silent. Then, applause. Real, loud, respectful. People stood and clapped. Some had tears in their eyes. Marcus smiled, not as a homeless man, not as a victim, but as a man who had risen again. That night, Judge Thompson called. I read the article, he said. Was it too much? Marcus asked. No, the judge said. It was perfect. You told the truth, and truth has power. There was silence for a moment. Then the judge added, Marcus, I want you to know something. You didn't just change your life. You changed mine again. And now, you've changed others too. Marcus didn't know what to say. For once, he just listened and felt proud. It had been 2 months since Marcus's story was published. He had become a quiet symbol of hope. People now waved at him on the street. Children in his music class brought him hand-drawn cards. He was rebuilding his life one step at a time. But one cold evening, as Marcus walked back to the New Hope Center, a message arrived on Sandra's phone. She called him over, her voice soft. Marcus, there's someone who wants to meet you. She says she's your daughter. Marcus froze. My daughter, he whispered. Sandra nodded. She read the article. She wants to talk. Her name is Jasmine. Marcus stepped back. His heart pounded. He hadn't heard that name in years. I thought she forgot me, he said, his voice shaking. After her mother died, I left. I was too broken. Sandra looked into his eyes. Maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she was just waiting. Marcus stood there, caught between fear and hope. Should I meet her? He asked. That's up to you, Sandra replied. But maybe this is part of your healing. The next afternoon, Marcus waited at the city park. It was the same park he had once slept in when he had nothing. Now, he sat on a bench in clean clothes, holding a warm cup of tea. He kept looking around nervously. Then he saw her. A young woman around 25, with deep brown eyes and curlies, hair. Just like her mother, she walked slowly toward him. Dad, she asked softly. Marcus stood up, unsure what to do. Yes, he said, almost whispering. Jasmine, she nodded. Her eyes were already full of tears. I saw your face in the newspaper, she said. I cried all night. Marcus stepped closer. I'm sorry, Jasmine. I left when I shouldn't have. I thought I was doing what was best for you. I was angry, she said, for a long time. But I missed you. Every day, tears rolled down Marcus's cheeks. I missed you too, he said. I thought I had lost you forever. Then, without another word, she hugged him, a deep, long hug. Not of pain, but forgiveness. They sat on the bench and talked for hours about her childhood, her dreams, her college studies, about his pain, his journey, the courtroom. "I'm proud of you, Dad," Jasmine said. "You fell, but you got back up." "I had help," he replied, "from people who didn't give up on me, like Judge Thompson." "Can I meet him one day?" she asked. "I'd like that." Marcus smiled.